Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me today on an outdoor Draw With Me sketchbook session. Sorry, there's some parts in this where the wind is so strong that my hair gets in the way. So sorry about those parts. So these are the tools that we're going to use today. Tombow brush pen, the bigger Faber Castell brush pen, a gray tone marker, thanks Boru for the suggestion, I hope I said your name right, and a red ink pen. Well, today we're going to be working in this Midori B6 sketchbook, and I have some concept sketches I want to ink, and while we work I also wanted to share some thoughts on AI ethics topics told through the lens of these cute animals, which were the inspiration for these exercises. This first drawing is a pair of really adorable, if I may say so myself, Corgis being wrongly identified as hot dogs and having a panic about it. So image classification and related areas like facial recognition and others are computer vision models we interact with regularly. They're the models that identify cat versus dog, the objects identified when you use Google Lens, or the algorithms that also identify people's faces. So when you use your cell phone camera, you can identify, where your friends are, and then the photos applications kind of group all of the photos with the same people's faces together. These are all examples of how we already very regularly interact with these types of models that would also be incorrectly identifying our corgis as hot dogs. And I guess, I think a lot about this at work as a minority and working in AI research, but facial recognition in particular is controversial and banned in many states, including here in California, as many of these models wrongly identify, for example, darker-skinned people as criminals. In most of these models, there are inherent biases in them because of the way that they're trained and the types of data available. I mean, even if you look at language models nowadays, the large language models or LLMs, like ChatGPT, which I'm sure you've heard of at this point, they also include data from sources like Reddit and 4chan and all of these kind of websites where certainly a lot of bias information lives. So, as I said, as a minority in the AI research field, I'm always thinking about how we can promote transparency and accountability. Companies and developers should be open about how their AI systems work, what data they're being trained on, and how they're being used. In the EU and the AI Act in the US was passed, but the EU version regulation on AI is much more detailed and stricter. And they have a lot more policies on transparency requirements for people creating these types of large models that can do all these things like identify people's faces or generate information in natural language, like I'm speaking to you. And as artists, I'm sure, of course, everyone is thinking about this. So in a previous video, I talked about how some researchers in the field are actually creating these adversarial attacks or techniques that artists can in fact use. And that's really cool research, like Nightshade. And I think the earlier version of Nightshade was called something else. I'll put a link to everything in the description. So I'm curious how many of you all are thinking about AI in any way, maybe you've used some of the features in like the Adobe suite. They've launched a lot of AI features there that are both generative and non-generative. And yeah, I'm curious how you're thinking about things. And but yeah, I mean, the models everything is changing and improving at such a rapid rate. So for example, even traditionally what have been called guidance-free classification models are moving toward more open vocabulary where detailed objects can be identified not just generically. So for example, models in the future will be able to say that it's the Eiffel Tower and not just a landmark. But even as these models improve at a very rapid rate, and by the way, consume a lot of natural resources to do so, there's still a lot of room for bias, even as these models accelerate in their capabilities, but also in terms of how they're being put into production and impacting more people at scale. And so I think the more all of us can participate in the conversation and think about these things, the better prepared we are, and the more optimistic I am personally. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about making a little sticker bundle based on a series of these on that note, maybe as a way of raising awareness and interest in these kind of ethical AI topics. Yeah, let me know what you think about that. And the second drawing that I will do is actually a very cute rabbit pair saying goodbye. It was nice knowing you, as they get identified as pate. So yeah, pretty sad, but also I know that these are very cute and toy drawings and examples, but I'm hoping to tell a bigger story about the changing landscape and some of the challenges that we do face that will impact a lot of us once they're in production and being used at scale, right? And so I think cute animals are a way of doing that. But yeah, let me know what you think of the idea. I'd be curious to get your feedback. But I do think maybe now more than ever, our creative pursuits are actually more important than ever. I think, I mean, again, this is just a toy example, but as artists, we have a really unique opportunity to raise awareness about these important issues through our creative work. And we can do it in a way that it's accessible to a very broad audience, but also maybe not so directly offensive. Like, we kind of get around people's inherent defenses for those that are kind of adamantly in the other camp, right? Thinking that are not worried about, copyright or bias in AI. And so I think we are uniquely empowered to have these conversations, or have people have these internal conversations even with themselves. And by incorporating themes of how we're feeling on a day-to-day, or in my case, encountering and thinking about AI ethics every day, or even just the different struggles that we all feel in our arts, I think we can really spark these conversations and encourage people to think critically about not just the technology that is increasingly shaping our world, but also their own ability to have an impact in things, right? I think we can all have an impact in different ways. Well, Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I really appreciate all of you that have taken any time to stop by here or subscribe or comment, or even if it's just popping in for a few seconds. It means a lot to me. So yeah, thank you so much for all of your support, and please feel free to leave comments, your thoughts, how you feel about AI in art, or maybe computer vision applications in general, and it would be wonderful to hear from you. Thanks so much.